All right, hey everybody, this is Rosh, and you are watching Helix Basics. This is a YouTube tutorial series that I'm putting together to help new and experienced users program their Line 6 Helix. So a little about myself. Once again, my name is Rosh, and I build and program guitar rigs out here in the LA area as well as online. Some of my clients include Steve Vai, Leppard, Melissa Etheridge, Perfect Circle, Bush, Kylie Minogue, Maroon 5, and more. I wanted to give back to the Helix community and show some tips and tricks on how to program their Line 6 Helix. If you've been watching this tutorial series or this YouTube channel, you've definitely seen a lot of fractal audio content. And one of the things that a lot of people don't know about me is that I program all the modelers out there on the market, including the Kemper, the Quad Cortex, all the fractal products, and in this case, the Line 6 Helix. So there's a lot of crossover content. There's a lot of best practices no matter what modeler you choose. And I wanted to help you guys out and show some of those tips and tricks. So this video is going to be dealing with basically basic volume pedal things and expression pedal things to consider. So right here, I've already dialed in a basic, Voxy style clean sound. Using the matchstick amp. And then I've also added a Minotaur pedal as a overdrive pedal and a simple delay. And so what we're going to do is we're now going to most users are going to want to add a volume pedal in their presets so that they can use the built-in expression pedal or expression controller to control the volume of their preset. Now, one of the things to consider is the placement of the volume block. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is we want to make, some judgment on where we're going to place the volume pedal and the volume block in the particular preset. For many users, a lot of us are used to using in the analog world like an Ernie Ball volume pedal, and we plug our guitar into that, and then the volume pedal will then feed into the rest of our effects. So for those users who want that kind of behavior, you would basically put the volume pedal at the beginning of your preset. So what we're going to do is we're going to place it here. So I'm going to hit the joystick, rotate all the way down until it gets to volume pan, go to mono, and then pick the volume pedal. Now, what you'll notice here before I assign it to the expression pedal is that if you do want to move any of your blocks anywhere within the preset, you can just hit the action button right here. And then you can use the joystick and start moving some of these around through the preset. So it makes things really easy to, try different things on the fly, maybe different placements. And then again, if you make if you try something and you find that maybe it's not the best placement, you can of course move the block somewhere else in the preset. So the next thing that we're going to want to do, of course, is assign it to an expression pedal. So let's, of course, hold this button down. And then now what we're going to do is it's going to ask, okay, which controller do you want to assign it to? Take note that in the upper right-hand corner of your Helix, you'll notice that it says EXP1 or EXP2. One of them is going to be bold and one of them is going to be, kind of grayed out there. And by pressing firmly on the top of the pedal, just like if you were pressing the foot switch of a wah pedal from Dunlop or something like that, it's going to toggle between the two expression pedal types. So Line 6 has already allowed users to toggle between two expression functions using the same pedal. So for example, you could feasibly have expression pedal 1 control the volume and then EXP2 control the wah of a preset. So right now you'll notice that it is an EXP1. And you want to make sure that you're noting which one it is so that you can assign the proper controller to it. So if we go to this screen, what we're going to see is it says EXP2 just by default. And of course, you can rotate this knob and then make sure you select EXP pedal 1. Now, again, for users who are using EXP2 for the volume function, and maybe you have EXP1 set as a different function, just make sure which one is highlighted and bold matches the controller that is listed there. Now, a couple things to consider with the volume pedal. You can, of course, set the minimum and maximum value as well. So, for example, if you want to use the volume pedal, but maybe you don't want the heel down, toe up position to be fully off in volume, you can set the minimum value, something like this. So when your heel is back, your toe is all the way up, it's only going to go down to 80% of the volume. And then when the pedal is all the way forward, it'll be the maximum value. So some users may find value in this where they are playing in a situation which requires a lot of volume dynamics. Maybe you have a very dynamic band where there's a lot of quiet parts and loud parts, and you want to use an expression pedal to control the volume, and you don't want to just cut off the volume completely as you go back. So having a minimum value and a maximum value that's a little closer in value to each other makes the expression pedal a little bit more quote unquote sensitive. You can get a lot of more shades and grades and variance of volume as opposed to having it completely off like this. And again, some different users are going to find, what works for them. In my opinion, maybe if you are in, for example, like a pit orchestra or you're playing in a musical or something, I've definitely found a lot of value in having an expression pedal that doesn't cut off the volume completely, that I can just keep my foot on the expression pedal and then just move and ride the volume pedal without cutting off the sound completely. So for now, what we're going to do is we're going to set the minimum and maximum value to 0 and 100%. And then we're going to basically make sure that the volume pedal is engaged using the bypass button. And then now we're good to go. So the next step is, of course, we want to go through the different expression functions for this. So for example, let's go here. Sorry. So forgot to hit the joystick there. So now what we have is the expression pedal is now assigned to the volume pedal. So you can see that from here in this position in the very beginning, especially if you're using a clean amp, you're not going to notice that much of a difference in terms of the tone. But one thing to keep in mind is that, of course, like for example, if I turn on the Minotaur, you're going to notice that as I bring the volume pedal back, it's also going to reduce the gain on the pedal, or I'm sorry, on the overdrive. So again, this could be behavior that you're used to. This could be behavior that you like, so that as you bring the expression pedal back, you're going to notice that the gain is also reducing on your overdrives. This is the same and akin to basically rolling off the volume knob on your guitar. So as I bring the expression pedal forward again, we're going to have that amount of gain. Now, again, placement of the volume pedal is going to be different depending on where you do it. And that's why I built this preset as such. So for example, if we instead move the volume block after the overdrive, what's going to happen is this kind of behavior, where the overdrive, for example, the gain is going to remain the same. And if anything, I'll crank the gain up just so you can hear that the gain's not going to change as I bring the expression pedal back. So for users who have put the volume pedal after their overdrive pedals in the analog world, this would be very similar to that kind of behavior. Again, it's not going to reduce the gain going into the distortion pedal, but it will reduce the gain going into the amp. So that can be behavior that you want. So for example, if you do want to use, if you're the kind of player who maybe uses overdrive pedals to get different levels of gain into a clean amp, but you still want to be able to control the amount of volume you hear going into the amp, this can be behavior that you like. So that can also be behavior that can be useful for you. Let me turn off the Minotaur for a second. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to also move the expression pedal, the volume pedal, after the amp, and then place it here. So now what you're going to have is that if we do turn on the Minotaur, for example, and you have the volume pedal after the amp block, you're going to notice that you can reduce the volume without reducing the gain. So that can be behavior that you like, and that's going to be useful for you. My personal preference is always putting the volume block after the amp, but before the time-based effects, and here's why. So for example, if I do turn on the simple delay, I can basically do volume swells into the delay as if I was volume swelling with the volume knob on my guitar. So here's the simple delay. So if I reduce the volume pedal all the way to off, strike a chord, and then swell the volume pedal up, you can get some volume swells. So you can get kind of behavior like that. And again, doing this with my hand is a little bit cumbersome, but doing it with your foot, it can be a great way to, have some expressiveness with your playing. You can get more violin style volume swells. So that can be really useful for a lot of users. And again, also, if you use overdrives, it's not going to reduce the amount of gain. Another placement, of course, is putting this at the very end. So let's try that. Now, I'm not a big fan of this behavior because any time-based effects are also going to get cut off. So for example, with a simple delay, if we roll back the volume pedal really quickly while the delay is ringing, it's of course going to cut off those delays as well. So not my favorite type of behavior, but there are use cases. So for example, if you are in a, playing live in a very specific situation where you need to, maybe at the end of a song, you need to cut off any type of sound that's going to happen. Maybe, the band's ringing out a big chord at the end, and then drummer plays a drum fill, and then you're all supposed to stop and make sure there's no noise, there's no delays repeating or anything like that. Maybe it's synced up with lights or something so that the lights drop to black. That can be a very useful behavior to have a volume pedal that's going to cut off the sound. Now, last but not least, one of the things that we do want to address that, again, if you have the volume pedal in front of an amp like this, and the amp right now that I've dialed in is a very, clean amp. Let's turn off the simple delay. But if you find that the amplifier that you're using is going to have a ton of gain on it, for example, so if we just crank up the gain on this for just a quick second, and I'm going to roll back the channel volume just to compensate. So for example, if the gain is this much, again, without the Minotaur being on, if you roll back the volume pedal, and again, the volume block being before the amp, you're going to notice that it also cleans up the amp, just like as if you were rolling back the knob on your the volume knob on your guitar. So you can definitely hear a gain difference, and every amp's going to respond differently in this manner. And so what I, again, find that if I move the volume block after the amp, for example, then the gain, the volume of the entire preset will go down without reducing the gain. So here is the gain, and here's the volume. So you notice the gain remains the same regardless of where the volume pedal is set. So again, a lot of things to consider when you're placing a volume block in your preset. The placement is going to give you a lot of different behavior. Again, my recommendation for those who don't want to reduce the gain of their amp or their pedals and also still have some functionality with time-based effects, I definitely recommend putting the volume block here at the very end of the preset before the time-based effects, after the amp. But again, some users may be a little bit more quote-unquote old school, where they like the volume pedal feeding into the amp, just like you did in the analog world. Most users who have been using pedals into an amp usually never ran the volume pedal through the effects loop of their amps to keep the gain consistent. So again, that behavior can be done in the Helix. It just depends on the type of volume block behavior that you would like. So that's going to wrap it up for this tutorial. Thanks so much for watching. Really appreciate it. If you guys need any one-on-one help, by all means, feel free to reach out to me directly, and we can set up a session to program your Helix or any other modeler out there. So in the meantime, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys soon.
I'm falling with you, I'm standing with you, God.